Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever in the world you are tuning into the Esports Awards Origins podcast from. I am your host, Trevor Quickshot Henry, and today my guest will fall under both former professional player, current esports professional, broadcaster, content creator. I mean, look, this is the podcast where we speak to your favorite creators, your favorite players, your favorite professionals. And today, my guest is a multi-game, multi-champion. Whether it's Guilty Gear, whether it's Marvel vs. Capcom, and whether he's holding the controller or holding the mic. Mace Ashby, aka C4IQ. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing good. That was a crazy upsell, but I'll take it. Multi-champion. I'll put that on the CV next time. But yeah, I'm doing good.
Listen, I'm not familiar with the events, but what I can see: Wake Up on Trent champion versus Fighting champion, WUOT champion versus. Okay, these are facts. These are tournament games. First and foremost, let's talk a little bit about who is Mace Ashby. What is it that you do? Because the fighting game community is not one I get to speak to a lot.
Yeah, so in terms of fighting games, at the moment, I've been predominantly focused on my commentary. It's been a very up and down process to get to where I am now, where before I was like, oh, I want to show off what I know about fighting games, whether that be entering tournaments or just uploading tech to my YouTube and doing Google Docs, explaining matchups and all that sort of nerdy stuff. But I think all the stuff I've wanted to do in fighting games culminates very well into commentating, where I can just kind of show my maths, all my formulas and my whiteboard of red string. I can do that through commentary. So
listen, what I hear is an explosive intelligence being demonstrated to the audience. Mace, the Origins podcast is exactly as it says in the name. We want to get to know who you were before C4IQ, before C4, before you go into commentary, before you go into competition. And I always start with the same question. What is your earliest memory of playing video games?
My earliest memory, it's weird because I think it might be retroactive. I remember playing X-Men versus Street Fighter, and that blew my mind. Because I was a massive Marvel fan. Well, I still am. I don't know why I said what's in the past. I'm a massive Marvel fan, as you can see back here. And I played that game, and I was like, oh, I can play Marvel against my uncles. That's who I used to mainly play all sorts of games with. And I actually didn't know much about Street Fighter. So when I saw the Street Fighter characters, none of them can beat Wolverine or Cyclops. This is not fair. And as time went on, I was like, oh, there's a whole genre of fighting games. But Marvel was actually what got me into fighting games. Without Marvel vs. Capcom or X-Men versus Street Fighter, I might have missed it. I actually might have missed it. But for the competition side, that was actually, again, with my uncles, they used to hold tournaments for a game called Pro Evolution Soccer. I think it's
for the record, PES is better than FIFA, was always better than FIFA, and it makes me so mad that FIFA was more popular. PES was the better product, end of story. Out of interest, how old were you when your uncles are playing, are hosting these tournaments, and how big are these tournaments?
They were probably only 10 man, literally getting all the people from down the road, in the little cul-de-sac would come and play. I would have been about 12 when the first Pro Evo came out. And obviously I couldn't win any matches. I think it was when Pro Evo 3 came out, I actually got second place out of 10 people. So I would have been about 15, 16, and I was beating, to me, fully grown adults at 25 or 30. I was like, this feels good. This feels good.
I love this. Out of interest, how much was gaming part of your life? It sounds like a lot. For the rest of school, where was studies on the card? What was the plan, when you were 15, 16 years old and looking at the next steps in life?
I had the fairy tale idea of, I'll just learn how to program and that will get me into gaming. That's not how it works. I was like, if I know how a game works, I can just program a game. And I've got quite a bit of a scatterbrain, and I find it really hard to focus on something without having the instant gratification. I don't really look too far into the future in terms of what I would need to do to make games. So I did secondary school. I used to try and get people to my house to play CVS 2, which is Capcom versus SNK. And I was like, yeah, I can make a fighting game, 100%. And then I went to college for to get a B.Tech national diploma, and then halfway through, I was like, yeah, this isn't it. I prefer to talk and play than to create. So yeah, that kind of fell off.
There's an argument to be made that definitions I'll challenge you on. Creating stories, creating content, creating Google Docs, like you're still creating. It's just a different way, a different form. You know, it's a bit more artistic necessarily than, I don't know, holistic when you think of a game. So I get this. You are falling out of love with studies. What does work look like? How good are you as a competitor? And when do you start this content creator and this broadcasting like exploration?
For me, I was way worse. It was like a Dunning-Kruger effect. I was like, oh, I am good because I can understand what's going on. I can understand why people are good. Surely I can just translate that into me beating that person. Didn't work that way. 100%. I used to play online and think, oh, I'm beating, out of 10 games, I'd win like 8. So I must be like really good. And then I play people that travel out of their house and it's a completely different level. People that spend money to travel offline, they've got more like skin in the game. So they're normally better. And that's when I realized I was a big fish in a very small pond. And I came out of that pond and I was bad. So the content part came from me being so egotistical. I wanted to just record matches. Back in the day, didn't really have replay features that well. So I would have like an Ava Media, go to offlines or even play online, record the match. At first, it was all my wins, again, the ego part. And then I was like, maybe I should record my losses and watch them back and just throw them on YouTube because I've recorded it anyway. And then, dissect why I'm a bad player. And hopefully that would get me better. And I think that ethos carried on to commentating. So I used to run tournaments and I would be the only commentator. I'll just do solo commentary and be like, I'm going to watch this back to critique my own commentary.
I absolutely love this. And I'll tell you something. There's an element of self-deprecating humor. You're British, so it's genetically coded. But also, there's a lot of maturity in that approach of like, okay, hang on. I'm realizing this ego thing in the games are like, it's kind of not fulfilling. So let me challenge myself. Let me level up my commentary. How old are you at this point? And when do you feel like you're starting to get noticed or your voice is starting to get picked up? Because the FGZ has a lot of very powerful, long-standing voices as well.
Yeah, I must have been about, for the fighting game part, probably about 18, 20. Before and during this time, I was my game attack before C4 was shifts because I would go from one thing to another. I used to try and get into, I actively tried to get into Pokemon TCG and Magic. And I was like, I hate card games because there's too much RNG. I play them now, but back then I was like, no, not going to do this. Then I used to compete in breakdancing. And I was like, I don't think this is fair because the judge could just like the other person more and that is like a bias to who would win. So it's like, I want to be competitive in something that can't be denied. And I saw fighting games and I was like, if I win, there's nothing anyone else can say. That is the determining factor. So yeah, that must have been about just after my 20s where I was like, yeah, I'm going to sink a lot of my focus into this. And then I came out of it when I started getting I was on the cusp of like, are the results more important or is my knowledge about the game more important? And I'm still juggling that now because I don't think one translates into the other. I could do the Google Doc about my character, but then I could lose in a mirror match.
Yeah.
So someone using the same characters as me, I could lose to them, even though I know everything about my character.
But also, again, knowledge is one thing. Implementing it is a completely separate topic. But again, I'm hearing a very common thread here. Common thread. Shifts, as it were, struggle to sit still. You definitely have ADHD if you haven't been diagnosed yet. Secondly, you've also got this drive to keep being challenged by something, right? Like you've picked some very difficult things to compete in, whether it's physically in breakdancing, timing and knowledge in fighting games, and even in broadcasting, it's really tough. So you're in your early 20s. I imagine that this commentary thing and this talking about video games and becoming a bit of a knowledge base there is like picking up. So when does it start getting more serious for you, more than just like, hey, this is kind of something I'm doing to keep challenging myself?
I know this is called Origin. This is my origin or my villain arc, because was it the first versus fighting? It might be the first or the second versus fighting. No, it was the first one. So the first versus fighting, prior to this, my friend got me into a WhatsApp group, and they set me on my doom arc for sure, because they got me into the voice chat, into the group chat, and they said, "Who's this?" And shout out to Andrew, CT. He's like, "Oh, this is my friend C4." Oh, Shifts at the time. He's getting into Guilty Gear, because this was my first Guilty Gear, Xrd or Revelator. And I picked Leo Whitefang purely because my spirit animal's Vegeta. He had blonde hair and he looked like a Super Saiyan, so I just picked him. And they were like, who's this guy? Who's your friend? He's like, oh, he's just getting into the game. So in the group chat, they made my name Andrew's friend. They said, if you want to be known as your tag, you have to win a tournament or prove yourself by beating some of the good players. And I read it over and over again in the chat. I was like, I think this would break most people, but for me, this is my motivation. So I got I got second place at the first versus fighting, and the person who won it was like, everyone knew him, and they were going, oh, congratulations, blah blah blah. And he reset the bracket on me, and I was livid. So I was in winner side, and he reset the bracket from losers, and then he beat me. And everyone was, after the tournament, everyone was like, Teletubby land, happy and like, kumbaya. And I was like, this is embarrassing, because this guy called Kaisertron, he had a kid at the time. So he wasn't practicing and he beat everyone and everyone was happy. And I was like, this is a disgrace to us. We've all been training and the person who put in the least time won. And yeah, that set me off to being borderline narcissistic, into the point where the versus fighting that I did win, I brought my whole PC setup. I bought PCs, I bought a couple of consoles, mics, cameras, and I played and streamed it. And I couldn't commentate too much because I was obviously competing, but I got paid more for streaming it and commentating than I did for winning it. And I was like, might be time for a career shift. But to be fair, fighting games are niche. There wasn't that many people. I think it was only like a 28-man tournament. So yeah, I thought, oh, there's another thing, sorry. On top of that, the tournaments before that I came second in, when I watched the VODs back, the commentators were basically saying that I RNG'd my opponent. And I was like, no. Commentate.
Yep.
Yeah. So my ego, when I watched the things back, I was like, you guys are trash at commentating. Let me commentate because I can do a better job than you, because you can't see what I'm doing. I am C4. I'm being smart. So I needed to get onto the mic as well as play. So yeah.
Can I tell you something?
Ecosystem.
Can I tell you something? Yeah. It's not, no. Hang on. I gotta dial this back. I understand that having a bold and strong opinion can generate waves, right? Especially when you're like, hey guys, why are we happy? Like seriously, You've got to get better. I also understand the fighting game community in the UK, especially in the early 2000s, I mean, hell, even today, it's significantly smaller than a lot of other markets, right? Like it's an Xbox and it's a FIFA market, maybe Call of Duty, Halo never really had as much of a thing, but it's smaller numbers. Mm-hmm. Timeline-wise, the first versus fighting was in 2010, okay? I imagine you've been to a bunch of them. I can also see that Ryan Hart is another person from the FGC in the UK who's very synonymous. He won some of those tournaments. But I also need to ask you, who is Jads and why do you kick his ass every time?
Jads is, he's an actual gamer. He is so good at everything. Every other thing that's not a fighting game, he destroys me at. I got him into Pokemon, like VGC, when Sword and Shield came out. And he played Pokemon before, but I was like, bro, like how deep this is? There's like EVs and IVs, all this sort of stuff. He jumped on, can't beat him. He taught me stuff like League of Legends. When Marvel Rivals came out, I was like, I'm the Marvel guy. I'm going to beat you. He's way better than Marvels. He can 360 no-scope me with with melee characters. Like that's how he's just so good. But yeah, in Marvel Infinite, that was the one thing where I could exploit his weakness, which is if he makes one mistake, I see the kink in his armor and I can always play on that. He has against me and some other players, and a lot of people do have this, where they will make a mistake in a match and then their mind will play on that mistake over and over and over and over and over again. I think this probably happens in every game, to be fair.
But it's more noticeable in fighting games. Sorry to interrupt, but like when you get into somebody's head and you can understand, like depending on the game, whether it's going to be you can parry them, whether you know how to block them, whether you know how to tag out at the right time. Like as soon as you get into your opponent's brain, it's like a worm and it just keeps digging. So I definitely understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah. And against Jads, the easiest way to do that to him, I'm sorry I'm exposing him, but if you want to beat Jads in any fighting game, do the most unsafe thing. And if it hits, he will just play like an absolute ape. He will lose the good part of his brain to the lizard part at the back and just play on instinct. And that's when he falls apart. So yeah, do something crazy and unsafe. You'll be going, what is this guy doing? And he will play like that for the rest of the set.
If anybody looks into C4IQ's like match history and results, you'll see this name come up a bunch, which is why I wanted to bring it up. Okay, look, we're starting to get an idea. Okay, we've covered gaming and competing in different forms as you're growing up in your early 20s. You start to find your voice. You start to say some bold things in the FGC, and you're starting to realize that like commentary is maybe going to be more fruitful.
Yep.
When do you consider the origin of making it? When you look back and you're like, that was the event that I am now calling myself a commentator or a broadcaster.
At that time, it was because I focused a lot on the niche. It's weird to say, the niche part of the niche fighting games. So you mentioned people like Ryan Hart. I'm really good friends with jammers, HD jammers. I know people like Logan and Damascus and Tyrant, all FGC heads, but they do the AAA fighting games like Street Fighter and Tekken and stuff like that. Where I did the anime games were at the time very, 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 very small. Things like Under Night in Birth, Guilty Gear Strive, like I was saying. So I was like, okay, we can't get the top commentators to commentate this game. I'll do it. And shout out to Fury Fire as well. Fury Fire helped me with Guilty Gear. We did some stuff for ESL or Rev back in the day. So I thought you can't get the top level commentators to your game. I'll do it. I proved myself. I won a versus fighting. I thought I was the best. I was like, now I can talk about the game and try and get other people to play it, because when I won, my pride and ego like flushed out my system, and I was like, this game's cool, and I would really like it if other people gave it a try. So yeah, I just started thinking I want people to either enjoy or respect the game, and that's what kind of drove me more into doing commentary. That was like the initial spark to it.
What time frame is this? Just so I can get a picture, because like the first versus fighting is 2010. You attend, you win a couple tournaments afterwards, and now I also want to say like we're building up to like anime fighting game or anime games, anime fighters, tag fighters like have this massive boom in the last few years. But like when did you really start to like commit and take this like, hey, I'm going to be the Guilty Gear guy. I'm going to be the Marvel vs. Capcom guy.
I think I feel going to be like a cop out. I don't think that ever happened. I always felt I think because I respect my I hate being humble, by the way, don't worry. I'm not being humble. I'm being like critical of myself. I look at other commentators from UK. I am so far down the totem pole. Like the people I mentioned, ask HG Jammers anything about Street Fighter, he will tell you without hesitation. Logan did radio presenting. He's a presenter. He knows how to speak. Where I used to go through my VODs and count how many times I said, I'm not that good. I think my mindset when I commentate is that I'm at a house session and I'm talking to friends. So I want people to feel like they're not watching the stream, they're taking part in entertainment. And maybe that carried me a little bit more than the other commentators, but I never thought that I would be the guy to commentate Guilty Gear. I think I fell into the spot because Dragon Ball was kind of like my breakout, where like I said, all these people are doing Street Fighter and Tekken and MK, the big games. And when Dragon Ball came out, they were like, oh, get the anime commentator. This is an anime game, right? It's a team game and it's anime. Get C4. So I was like, yeah, my spirit animal's Vegeta. I'm going to like Dragon Ball. So it was kind of like I was the best by default.
Yeah, but now hang on. I think you are selling yourself a little short here as well, because hypothetically, if I accept your premise, that gets you 1 or 2 events, right?
Yeah.
Before then, you're either trash and pushed out. But I'll tell you what I can see. 2019, you go to Brussels Major. 2021, we've got Evo Online, Dragon Ball FighterZ World Championship, Dragon Ball FighterZ World Championship Finals, Evo 22, Ultimate Fighter, the Mix-Up, Combo Breaker, Evo again versus Fighter. Like, I will go on some of these lists, but you've stuck around. So you're doing something right. And you have to reflect on this and be like, you're traveling, you're getting to see these things. Like, you're pulling it off, no?
True. I think because of how my mind works, I can't tell you why I'm succeeding. So to me, it's just like, it's just happening. I don't know where it is. Otherwise, I'd pass it on to everyone else.
Listen, you're also an amazing team player here. The amount of love that you are showing to your peers in the space is amazing. But I want to show you love, and I want to say it's congratulations to run this bracket, these tournaments you're doing. Let's pivot a little. Let's talk about the fighting game community, okay? You can remember playing some really early games, Street Fighter versus X-Men. You get into like Marvel vs. Capcom, you learn Guilty Gear. How does the fighting game community evolve as you grow up and see more of it?
I would say an analogy would be if someone said to you, do you like films? And most people say yes, but it's because there's different genres. And with fighting games, I never understood the different genres. So I think most people think of like Street Fighter and, like I said, MK, Tekken. They're 1v1s. And there is so many different genres. We touched upon like anime. Anime is such a nebulous word. It doesn't really mean anything, honestly. Some people say they're air dashers, where when you jump, you can air dash forward. Or anime might mean, oh, you can jump and air block, because the other games what I spoke about, you can't jump and block. So there's tweaks and different mechanics, and then you have stuff like Smash, which is like a platformer. And you've got like multiverses that will come to that, Brawlhalla. And then you've got team games like Dragon Ball. But that's different to tag games because the mechanic of tag is not the same as in the mechanic as assists. So you have tag fighters and team fighters, slightly different. Then you have arena fighters that work. They're not really 3D games, even though technically they are. It's just a huge pot of types of fighting games. And you get like the kind of the nebulous ones, sort of like For Honor. We would class For Honor as a fighting game, but I don't know if For Honor players do. They just go, I play For Honor. So yeah, it was a case of the evolution of fighting games it's like a big bang. It just exploded into so many different genres of fighting games. Sometimes it works against the FGC, I feel, where some people only come into one aspect.
Yeah.
And it makes it feel not as cohesive, even though we're all fighting games. But I think it's just so broad. It's too much to get everything under one.
Do you know the way I would draw a comparison? The word fighting games, or the FGC, is the equivalent of the word sport. I like sport. Which sport do you like? Well, currently I watch 2020 cricket. I also enjoy NFL. I'm not one for tennis, but I know my family does. Like, there's so many different ways. So when you say I like FGC, especially when you start digging deeper, when you start looking into the nuances and the mechanics of each of these games, I suck. I've never been able to use stick. I've never been able to use a controller. Like, I watch and I have the most admiration and respect, but I'm terrible at it. I want to ask you to tell me about what's the first arena you remember attending, either as a player or a broadcaster? How big is it and how did it feel?
The first tournament would have been Versus Fighting. Being from the UK, Versus Fighting is in Birmingham, so it's like a 2-hour drive for me. That was the first one. And for the lifespan of Huey Gear Rev, that's all I went to. I was like, oh, well, there was an opportunity for me to travel to Japan. And it's funny you spoke about stick. So I was competing to win the qualification to go to an arcade called Makido. in I think it was Japan. And I was like, cool, I'm going to win all these local tournaments to get enough points to qualify. And then there was one more tournament where I was like, if I win this, I can qualify. So I'm going to sign up. And then I don't know why I didn't do this before, but I read the small print. And at the time, I played on something called a hitbox. It's kind of like, it's a stick, but instead of the stick, you have 4 buttons. So it's like a keyboard. So you have like a space bar for jump. And
it's also it's super popular now. It's super popular now. Yes. You were way ahead of the curve.
I was.
Back then, I think you may have even been considered cheating. I think there would be debate about it, and I'm sure that's what you're about to build up to. So sorry for stealing your thunder.
So you know when I said I don't like being humble, I have an ego. When I think that I was the originator, I will say I was like the first person to play on Hitbox, and I got banned from certain tournaments because they thought I was cheating. Technically, I was. I was like walking forward, holding charge attacks, which is not okay. But I never did that. I just went, this is more optimal. Like I can go from back to forward in one frame, but on stick, you can't. You have to travel across the analog. So I was like, this is a no-brainer. If I'm going to play fun games, I want to play it with the best peripheral ever. So yeah, I was competing in Rev on Hitbox. And if you won the qualification spot, you'd go to the arcade, but they played on arcade cabinets. So I was like, well, even if I win, I'm not going to be able to perform because I don't play on stick. Yeah. So it kind of killed my hopes because I was like, I'm literally the only hitbox player. I'm the guy that when I go to tournaments, if my hitbox breaks, I'm out. I can't opt for someone else's hitbox because no one was using it at the time. So I was like, you know what? But I don't care. I had the Google Doc of Leo and I was like, you know what? I can justify that I know the most about this character. I'm happy. I don't need to beat people outside of Europe.
Okay, but no, hang on. Let's do this. So I love this side story. Absolutely do. For anybody who is watching, no, you could. For anybody who's watching any FGC tournaments nowadays, you normally have your controller players, you've got your joystick players, referred to as stick, and then levelers. That's kind of the modern day terminology. And levelers controllers have become widely accepted. I think they might even be more popular than stick, but that's irrelevant. So you're ahead of the curve. You're competing on a troublesome device at the time because you're smarter than everyone else. But I still want you to tell me about like what's the biggest arena that you get to attend? Like which Evo is it? Which combo breaker? Like what's one of the largest crowds and energies you can remember?
I think I haven't gone back and looked at the numbers for commentary, which is probably like the most important part. I would say it might be Twitch Rivals or Guilty Gear Strive. That was the first one. I think to date is probably Evo last year, 2025, where I got to do top 8 for Guilty Gear Strive. That was, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to do a Evo top 8. I don't know if this is the case, but I think I might be like the only UK or person from England who's done Evo Vegas top 8. I was like, oh, this is a lot of pressure. They did the whole makeup thing, and I was like, oh no, I'm not built for this. I'm not cut out for doing makeup and stuff. I just want to talk. On Twitter, I go by Yapinator. That's what I want to do. I just want to yap about games as a commentator. That's all I want to do. And I sat down, shouts to Ringe. I know he's so good. He will carry me when I mess up, if I got nervous or anything. But I actually didn't. I was nervous for 10 seconds until the match started. And then I forgot the whole like arena and people watching and whatever. I was like, I get to talk about the game I like with someone I consider a friend. So it was only the 10 seconds before the match and 10 seconds afterwards where I thought, wow, I'm talking to a lot of people and a lot of people are listening to me. That was pretty surreal.
I really, really love watching your smile telling that story. I actually was watching that tournament because Ringe was actually coming out to Esports World Cup just after Evo in Vegas. And I got to hang out with him. I got to hang out with Tasty Steve, Ryan Hart, the whole crew, right? Mm-hmm. When you think back to your younger self, Mace is sitting down. He's held his controller. He just got his ass handed to him by his uncle at Pro Evolution Soccer. What would you say to that young boy, knowing that you end up on the stage at Evo in Vegas, the holy grail of fighting game tournaments?
This is going to sound like a troll, but keep practicing. that's That's it. No matter how bad you are, it's kind of a cliche if you keep practicing. I do think, if I had to give myself advice, it was find something you love and latch onto it. And with fighting games, more than like Pro Evo or card games, for me, there's like an affinity to a character. And all my characters resemble Vegeta in a way. My favorite Street Fighter character is Nash. And that's where I got the idea of glasses for commentary. The character Charlie Nash in Street Fighter wears glasses, but he has 20/20 vision. So he kind of does it as a troll. And I was like, yeah, I like arsehole characters like that. So I was like, that's it. I'm picking him. And that was the biggest drive for me to get good at games, because like, I want to be the best Charlie Nash player. I want to be the best Leo player. I want to be the best Vegeta player in Dragon Ball FighterZ. That's always been my motivation with the character, to get good at a game. I don't know if that works for everyone, but for me, that's where it is. So I would tell my younger self, find the thing you love, latch onto it, and just go nuts on it.
I mean, I think there's a little bit of proof in the pudding there that you may have done exactly that. Your backdrop, your setup, your love for games is very apparent. So let's stop and let's maybe shift gears a little bit, right? We don't have the longest amount of time when we have these conversations, but we've loosely touched on pretty much the content creation. We've touched on growing up video games. I want to challenge you now and say, what is the next 5 years? What does the next 10 years look like for C4IQ?
I want to get people, whether it be casual players or people that want to get into commentating, I want them to be better than me. Again, not being humble, I don't think I'm naturally good at what I do. Especially with commentary. I'm dyslexic. I hate doing calls to actions. I hate runner shows. I'm really bad at reading scripts. But it's like, if you get someone used to doing it when they're younger, it should be a bit easier when they grow up. So that's what I want to do. And in terms of like game and content, with things like Invincible and Marvel Tokon, I love tag games. Quick tangent. I love construction. So when I play card games, I love building decks more than playing the decks. And team games give me, they scratch the itch. I love finding the synergy and then using the synergy. Not as much, but I love creating the synergy and finding something out. And with IPs like Invincible and Marvel, I think it would be cool if there was content trying to show casual players of fighting games that it's not as daunting as it looks. Because going online and getting beat 10 games in a row by people that are better than you, that is one aspect of fighting games. But with team games, creating something is also satisfying. And you don't always have to win for your satisfaction, for the dopamine hit that, oh, the thing I found in the lab, it worked on someone. That could also be your kind of achievement in a match. It's not always about the W.
I love that vision. I love that story. I also really like that you're talking about games that are coming out, like Marvel Talk. There's so much hype around it. I'm intrigued to see what happens with Invincible as well, as a fan. Let's zoom out and talk about the genre and talk about the FGC as a whole, because I'm going to forget who started this thread. You may not have even seen it, but Sajam and a bunch of the FGC guys had a retweeted conversation about how fighting games are inherently bad products. And
yes.
What they mean by
6
that
weeks.
is,
I think it was week 6 or something. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And the whole premise for viewers at home who didn't see this conversation was that when you think about a fighting game like Mortal Kombat, Tekken, let's go with the mainstream ones.
Yeah.
The story modes generally suck. The onboarding and teaching of the mechanics is generally pretty weak. The introduction to ladder play and ranked models is generally pretty bad. If you compare that to like a Resident Evil that has 9 games in its franchise, but they have evolved, they change, they model their game, they have way more products for you to use, right? That's something that I'm hoping will change. What would you like to see change in the fighting game community and games going forward?
That's a tough one. I would probably want, I think it is an idea of respect. When I think about other games, I've had this conversation a lot actually. in terms of like the Evo moment that we have with Justin Wong and Daigo with the parries and stuff. And as a commentator, I was like, okay, if I was to show this to my mum without the commentary, would she think it's hype? Would she think it's interesting? And it was like, oh, what about if I just spoke to a random person off the street? There is so much context that you need to know to understand how impressive it is and how the hype you can get from the audio. You can never have played Third Strike and hear everyone cheering and be like, oh, that's amazing. For the respect, you have to know how hard it is to parry all those moves. And I feel most other games, you don't have that. Like, once you, a 360 no-scope, you can not know the lingo, but understand that that was hard to do without having to have ever played an FPS game. You can just visually see, oh, wow, that was crazy accuracy with insane execution. I don't know how you give the respect of the difficulty of fighting games with like with a natural like outlet, without something like a training mode or a commentator giving you all the nerdy frame data and numbers. I don't know how you do that, but I think if someone can figure it out, getting people to understand how hard certain aspects of fighting games is, whether it be the execution or the mind games, to be like, he knew that player was going to do that. That's why I love Guilty Gear, because the burst can happen at any moment. And if you bait a burst, which is like you block, or something like Killer Instinct with combo breakers, you can, it's such a cerebral thing that I feel more people can understand, because it's similar to like RPS. It's like, oh, he knew he was going to throw rock, so you did paper. That's pretty impressive in the heat of the moment. We need to, I feel that fighting games would thrive more if they could get that to the forefront of why people should even watch or play fighting games. I just don't know how you do it. I have no idea.
Do you think that the fighting game community and the scene, the esports scene in general, is going through a transition now to do that? Because I'm somebody that's watched for a long time. Like, I still remember watching Super Smash Bros. When like the guy who played Marth, and I've just forgotten his name. Anyways, like somebody who revolutionized wave dashing in the early 2000s. I'm disappointing myself. Regardless, the fighting game community was so much more niche 20 years ago. Arguably, still incredibly niche 10 years ago. But I think with massive breakout hits, like we have seen with recent Mortal Kombat and the Mortal Kombat movie, the Street Fighter movie that's coming out, the Dragon Ball FighterZ impact, even though it was short-lived, is the fighting game community breaking out of its bubble a little bit more than you've seen in your time with games?
Yeah, I think fighting games are more in the zeitgeist of a genre. I still don't think they have the respect that they probably deserved. There's a lot of, I need to sit you down to explain to you why button mashing isn't successful in fighting games. Like, that's only going to get you so far. It's difficult because things like Fatal Fury, I think the promotion of that is everywhere. You can't really not have heard of it. You might not remember it, but you might not have. I think it's hard to
Cristiano Ronaldo and Salvatore Ganacci being included into the games, them at the Esports World Cup, the biggest tournament in the world. Like, yes, you're 100% right.
And the marketing had iShowSpeed and KSI on it. They had a look. Yeah. And so to me, it's like, okay, if you're online, you've heard of Fatal Fury. But if I ask them now, they'll be like, oh, yeah. They couldn't tell me anything about it. They couldn't tell me a character in Fatal Fury. So it's like, yes, people have heard of Street Fighter and MK and Tekken, but I don't know if they could tell me what it's about. And that's the problem. I think you could talk to most people that are online and they could look at League of Legends and look at Dota and know they're different. I started with Smite, and I liked Smite because it was a third person. It felt more like a fighting game to me, unironically. And they all have identities. But with fighting games, it's like, it's a fighting game. Tekken is a 3D fighting game. That's kind of the biggest delineation from Street Fighter. And then you've got Mortal Kombat. Oh, that's the one with the over-the-top, blood killing in it. That's it, though. Like, there's no talk about mechanics and a massive difference from a mechanical standpoint is NRS games tend to have a block button, where in Street Fighter you have to hold back to block, and in Tekken you can block in neutral without pressing anything. You block mids,
and also just Just to pause really quickly as well, NRS is NetherRealm Studios. That's Injustice and Mortal Kombat are the two big ones. No, you could. That's why I'm here. I want to translate a little bit because I know my producer's sitting going, what the F is an NRS and an Injustice? I know this for a fact. But I'm one of those nerds that love it. Listen, Mace, what I love is I think you might be the Vegeta of video game commentary. I could hear the passionate anger in your voice, but it's Vegeta after he's married Bulma and had Trunks. Okay, so you still got that edge, but you still got that villain streak. Let's pause and before we start to wrap up this conversation, I'm going to ask you one more challenging question. Okay. How do you want your name and brand and content to be remembered in however many years in the future it will be before you wrap up with the FGC? What will your legacy be?
I want my legacy to be the bar is high, but it's reachable. For everything I've done, whether it be competing or commentating, I want people to be like, oh, there it is, but I can reach it. I don't want to feel or seem like I'm above anyone else. One thing about fighting games or the fighting game community is a lot of them, I mean, I kind of felt this as well, actually. Let me not kind of separate. It's very easy to talk about things that you really like. I think a lot of people might get anxiety or like a bit nervous talking about things in general or talking to crowds. But once you talk to someone about something they really, really, really like, I think that all washes away from them. So that's why I don't want it to be that the bar is so high that people think they can't achieve it. It is so achievable. And the more you like or know about the thing you're talking about, it's just easier. So yeah, the bar is high, but it's reachable. That's what I would like to leave behind for all the people that come after me in terms of commentating or playing games.
I really, really love that. From competing in tournaments with other Brummies in Birmingham to standing on stage for top 8 at Evo Vegas. I mean, what a journey. It's not over yet. There's still places to go. Let's tell our viewers exactly how they can find you. What are your socials? What are your channels? And what are you up to as your next kind of event or gig?
So I am C4IQ on Twitter, X, and Twitch and YouTube. I love tag games. Like I was saying about the whole deck constructing element. I love that. And there was a bit of a drought, and most people in fighting games don't like tag games. I'm trying to change that. And if I can't change the FGC's mind, I am all throttle going to be talking to casual players. I am trying to start doing my YouTube a little bit more in terms of talking to people, doing a bit of code switching to kind of get away from all the frame data and boring stuff to be like, you can play as your favorite Marvel superhero. Is that not cool? And all you need to know is these one or two basic things, and then you can have fun. And same with Invincibles. I want people to fall in love with fighting games the same way I did with the IP of these characters and creating your own team, like your own special Avengers team or your elite get rid of the Viltrumites team in Invincibles. That's the plan for me in the future, to put the concept like that out.
Duplicate. I want to see how Duplicate does in this game. Fascinating mechanics as far as I can see. Listen, C4IQ, Mr. Explosive Intelligence. I have one last segment that I like to run with all of my guests. It's quick fire questions with Quick Shot. I'm going to give them to you in increasing levels of intensity. If you give me one word, one sentence, or one paragraph, I'll follow your lead. Okay? So you dictate the pace. But let's start with the very first fighting game that you fell in love with.
Street Fighter Cross Tekken.
Your favorite character in all fighting game history, favorite character to play?
To play? Ooh, that would probably have to be Super Saiyan Vegeta.
I love this. Yes, fire. What is the hardest matchup you personally experience?
In Street Fighter Cross Tekken, Theory Fighter picking Chun-Li and Geef against my Brian and Bison. That was the slap around the face that I do not have to play. I don't know how to play neutral. I don't know what footsies mean. Yeah.
I can feel the pain in your voice. What is your favorite character in any game to commentate?
My favorite character? I probably would say Hawkeye in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite or Marvel vs. Capcom 3, I like active zoning.
Ooh, interesting. Okay. What is your favorite? Sorry, who is your favorite voice to listen to in the fighting game community?
I'll probably have to say, can I give 2 answers?
Of course you can.
Yep. I'll say Logan. That is my bar in terms of getting a point across clear and concisely with correct pronunciation. That's who I look to. And HD Jammers, because he talks with so much authority. Even if he's wrong, I feel he's correct.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, changing gears. What is your favorite version of the Dragon Ball anime?
I would say it's the Ocean dub that was on Toonami Cartoon Network.
Okay, I like this.
I think so, yeah.
What is your favorite Vegeta power level? Saiyan, Super
Margin.
Saiyan.
Margin Vegeta.
Okay.
Margin Vegeta. I've got.
Oh, that's.
You see the tattoo there? Yeah.
That is awesome.
Margin
that
Vegeta.
Is so awesome. Dude, I love this so much. I want Future Trunks tattooed one day. He's my favorite. Is Leveless overpowered?
No.
You're such a liar.
It's the most optimal. It's the most optimal by far. Yeah.
I like this. Yeah. Okay. Dream player versus player that you would love to commentate in a stadium filled with fans.
Punko versus Bonchan. Bonchan is my inspiration on footsies when we used to play Saga in Street Fighter. I think it's very, for me, inspirational to see someone keep out rushdown characters with a slow character like Saga. And Punko, because he is the cheat code for commentary. If you want to get hype at commentary, just watch a Punko match and say what he's doing, and it will automatically be hype. He is crazy in terms of execution and his thought process, and he makes good players look bad. So I would love to see.
It sounds like a clash of styles.
Punko.
Clash of styles as well. 2 questions that are left. What is one word that defines the fighting game community?
This isn't for everyone, but for most, I would say ego.
Oh, that's a great answer, and I do agree. Okay, the very last one. If you could nominate absolutely anybody from any industry to be my next guest on Origins, who would you nominate and why?
I'll throw in a little bit of bias. I'm going to say Theory Fighter. I mentioned him a couple of times. He does content on YouTube in terms of a lot of retroactive stuff. So old games, even though he's doing it now. And I don't know if this works the same in other genres, but with fighting games, it is really cool to see how games started to where they are now, because the skill set is so different. Some players that are, the new generation could be really good at our old game. And a case in point is like Marvel vs. Capcom 3. We're getting kids that are 18 beating veterans in that game. So
I absolutely love I think it was the HD re-release fairly recently, and seeing Justin Wong getting his ass handed to him from time to time. It doesn't happen that often, but it brought me so much joy in those videos where he does lose. It's beautiful to watch. Mace, thank you so much for taking the time. I am one of those fans who pays respects to the FGC, and I'll do my part to make sure that the rest of these kiddies these days also pay respect to the FGC.
Much appreciated. Hopefully I can keep you entertained when I do this commentary for fighting games. If it's not with my voice or my jokes and my silly nature, it could be the Vegeta hairline that I'm trying to grow. Hopefully I can keep you.
That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to see. Listen, I'm looking forward to Talk On. I'm looking forward to Invincible. Thank you so much. Please do enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to say goodbye for now, because that does it for another episode of the Esports Awards Origins podcast. He was C4IQ, and we've got an entire playlist with a whole bunch of other personalities, players, professionals. Just click the playlist and pick the next video to watch. Until next time, I've been Quickshot.